Cartwright! Cartwright! Just like that. Nobody came up, I hang up.
I did this joke about being left-handed, and it got a laugh.
I want to hear the joke.
Non-stupid people always underestimate the damaging power of stupid people.
Put that coffee down.
Creators are leaders. Be careful what kind of leaders you're producing here.
Helen, we're both in sales.
Let me tell you why I suck as a salesman.
They realized that to be in power, you didn't need guns or money or even numbers. You just needed the will to do what the other guy wouldn't.
I'm not leaving. The show goes on.
Well, hello there, friend. Welcome back to the Construction Leadership Podcast. I'm your host, Bradley Hartmann. Well, we are now in the month of July, and the year of 2024 is already halfway over. Can you believe it? And I wanted to take a moment to identify 3 pieces of content, what we call the APB. 1 article, 1 podcast, and 1 book that I discovered in Q2 of 2024 that I would strongly recommend to a friend, and we will make available to you. So to position you and your team for a better second half of the year, here are 3 sources of insight. The 1 article I would recommend you read is The Scholar of Comedy. In brief, it's an interview with Mr. Jerry Seinfeld. The source is The New Yorker. The author and the co-host that you will hear his voice is a guy named David Remnick, and it came out at the end of April of 2024. In the late 1990s, I was obsessive in my pursuit to record all 180 episodes of Seinfeld on VHS. I cross-checked TV Guide before scheduling my college courses. I once canceled a date with a girl because I had to ensure the recording of an elusive episode. Season 2, Episode 11, titled The Chinese Restaurant.
Let me just check. Excuse me, I'm expecting a call. Costanza?
Yes, I just got a call. I yell, Cartwright! Cartwright! Just like that. Nobody came up, I hang up.
Well, was it for Costanza or?
Yes, that's it. Nobody answered.
Was it a woman?
Yes. I tell her, you're not here. She said curse word, I hang up.
She called. He yelled Cartwright. I missed it.
Who's Cartwright?
I'm Cartwright.
You're not Cartwright.
Of course I'm not Cartwright!
I bawled, tears born of joy and sorrow in 2004 when the Seinfeld box set was released, all 180 of them on DVD. Now, watching specific episodes would be infinitely simpler, but damn it, how much time did I waste recording all these? And what was I going to do with the 45 VHS cassettes I was lugging around from apartment to apartment in Chicago? The answer's hundreds of hours. That's how much time I wasted. And eventually, I lit them all on fire in a rusting Weber grill. However, my self-indulgent rite of passage was anticlimactic. The magnetic tape, it just shrivels up into a tiny ball. Anyway, you do not need to be a superfan to enjoy the insights in this interview. Jerry Seinfeld's thoughts on craft and the pursuit of mastery are instructive. And there's also a bonus recommendation when it comes to negotiation that he applied when cajoling the actor Hugh Grant. So I'll play you a clip from David Remnick and Jerry Seinfeld. However, the episode that they ended up releasing on the New Yorker Radio Hour edited out this one clip that I thought was fantastic. So I'm not going to try to do any voices. I'm just going to read it for you here. So David Remnick asks, I was once talking to the writer Adrienne LeBlanc, who's been working on a book about comedy, and I asked, who are the 2 smartest comedians about comedy? I expected her to name 2 obscurities, and she said, you, Jerry Seinfeld, and Chris Rock, because you study it. You've been thinking about this. It's not just a bunch of jokes. Jerry Seinfeld says, Yes, Chris is the smartest person maybe I've ever met. I was with Chris a couple weeks ago and he was talking about a young comic. He was asking the comedian about what he did that day. And the guy said, nothing, but I'm going to do a set tonight. And Chris explained to him, you make money during the day. You collect it at night. During the day is where the money is made. David Remnick asks, what does that mean for a comedian? Seinfeld says, comedians don't generally think they have to do more than perform on stage every night. They don't think there's more to it than that. But there's quite a bit more to it than that. And it shows if they don't. Well, it shows when you try and go to different levels or different worlds. If you have a really solid work ethic and have some sense of writing, you can move into different fields more easily. Now, a brief aside here before I share this next clip that you will actually hear, Jerry and David Remnick. But I think this idea about a work ethic, a solid work ethic, I think speaks for itself. You are probably not going to be exceptional or rise to the heights of which you may dream about if you do not have a really strong work ethic, full stop. However, this next point he makes, if you have a really solid work ethic and have some sense of writing, here is where I often find people will probably cut themselves off at the knees just a little bit too much when they say, oh, I'm not good at writing, so I don't write. This is often paired with the same people who say, oh, I don't read. I haven't read a book since high school. I'm going to be digging into this more because there are absolutely different modes of reading. And I get it. You might not want to go word for word and really think and make notes in the margins of every single book you read because some books, quite frankly, aren't worth it. You're not that interested. However, you are going to have to do that if you want to continue to learn at a pace that will really accelerate your career. And I think the same thing applies to writing. And I say this as someone who will often have very strong opinions about something. And I will think about something for a really long time. And then I will go put it on paper and I will see that there are some giant holes of logic that are in there. And when we work with clients, there will often be different perspectives about how to pursue different paths to arrive at the same end. And I'll say, well, let's just go and let's just write it down. So Jim and Sam, why don't both of you take a second? I want you to write your argument in one sentence, in one paragraph, and then one page. That might be the homework over the next week or two. And what inevitably happens for both of these individuals, they will find nuances that are in their head and maybe they make verbally, but they do not fully understand until they actually write it down and are forced to reckon with what came out of their head. And I believe human beings, and certainly including myself, we have an overconfidence about the things that we think and the things that we think and then say. However, there is proof when you put it in writing. And I don't care whether you type it out. I don't care whether you use a Bic pen, whatever you're into. But when you turn your thoughts into writing and put it on paper and give it to someone else to see how intelligent or persuasive or influential it is, or how accurate it is, that is the moment of truth. So I'm speaking to myself here as well as everybody else. Do not just say I'm not someone who's good at writing, so I don't write. But the ability and the confidence and courage to go and translate what's bouncing around inside your head and putting it on paper to say, does this actually make sense? Will save a lot of time. And then you will also see, okay, actually, my general thesis is right. There are some holes in it. How do I fix those? And this just improves your thinking. It will improve your leadership. It will improve your management. It will help you become a better communicator, full stop. So I think what Jerry's talking about here, this combination of a solid work ethic and have some sense of writing. He didn't say you had to be Hemingway. He said you had to have some sense of writing, and every one of you right now who's listening, you have some sense. Now, some a little bit more than others, but all of you have some sense of writing. And this goes back right to that work ethic. If you want to be a good leader, get in the habits of pouring out those thoughts on paper, looking for strengths, looking for weaknesses in your arguments. That's only going to help you and your team. All right. Appreciate you hanging in there for that digression. Let's now go to this other clip when Jerry starts talking about why what is really valuable is having a really strong skill.
it's possible that you've probably made $1 or $2 from Seinfeld, and yet you still work so hard.
Mm-hmm.
Why?
Because the only thing in life that's really worth having is good skill. Good skill is the greatest possession. The things that money buys are fine. They're good. I like them. But having a skill, I learned this from reading Esquire magazine. They did an issue on mastery. Do you remember that?
I don't.
I'm surprised. You definitely read Esquire.
Oh, yeah. Of course.
I loved Esquire in the 60s. A magazine for men, remember?
Yeah, I do.
Yeah. And they did one issue. In fact, I got to get this issue. I get it on eBay. I'm sure it's there. And it was about, and it's a very Zen Buddhist concept, pursue mastery. That will fulfill your life. You will feel good. Nothing else. I know a lot of rich people, so do you. They don't feel good as you think they should and would.
Right.
They don't. They're miserable. So I work because if you don't, in stand-up comedy, if you don't do it a lot, you stink.
All right, friends, there it is. That is the A in the APB. The one article I would recommend that you read is called The Scholar of Comedy from the New Yorker. It's an interview with Mr. Jerry Seinfeld. Now, you can just Google that, and I believe the New Yorker will give you one free article to read before they then make you start paying for it. So you can go do that. Also, I will make the PDF available. So if you are already part of our construction leadership newsletter, with one click of a button, you can download it there, and you can also find it in our show notes. And now for the podcast. My one recommended podcast is from the Invest Like the Best podcast, which is one that I bring up every now and then because I really think they do a nice job. And the title is Frank Blake, Leading by Example. The host is Mr. Patrick O'Shaughnessy, and it came out on June 11th, 2024. So Frank Blake is an attorney educated at the knee of Mr. Jack Welch at General Electric, and Blake became the chairman and CEO of Home Depot. Early in this episode, Blake shares the following insight about the fallacy of cascading, quote unquote, communication in an organization. I have not been able to stop thinking about this since he said it. Now, what I do know is that Frank Blake is right. When it comes to messaging from any leader or any leadership team, water, gravity, or any related metaphor inferencing travel through the path of least resistance is entirely wrong. A leader's ability to communicate to his executive team of 7 people or his larger organization of 50 or 1,000 is so hard. And Frank Blake in this little clip explains why.
Everything is uphill. I'm always amused when I hear leaders talk about messages cascading down through an organization as if gravity were your friend. And gravity is not your friend. Your team, for the most part, through the organization, they're not waiting with bated breath to hear from you. They actually, for the most part, really don't care what you have to say. You have to work up through osmosis. I mean, it's a reverse effort to get your message through an organization. My joke would be, this is easier in the retail context to get it. But if I walk to a store, and this conceptually is true for every organization, I walk a store and I go up to the store manager and I say, how's everything going? There is only one right answer to that in any organization. The answer is, everything's going great. You are wonderful. Please leave. And you need to understand, leaders need to understand this fundamental fact that they have to work hard to get their message and get their direction through an organization. That in turn leads to how you think about the people who report to you, about your leadership team, and an understanding that you need them to radiate out through the organization with the same aligned message that you have.
In the coming weeks, you will hear another episode where I dig a little bit deeper into this, and I'll relay a couple recent conversations and challenges that our clients have had about this exact thing, which is effective communication and getting everybody to understand as the economy and the market and the competition changes, we need to change what we are doing as well. And there are some specific behaviors that used to be encouraged and promoted, and those no longer are. They are deliberately changing the direction of their businesses, and people are not understanding the message. And there's a frustration, and in one case, a little bit of resentment of how hard this is. And I think it really speaks to what Frank Blake was talking about is, we've had a town hall. I sent an email. I recorded a quick video. I've been talking about this for a month now. Why are things not changing? Because communication does not cascade. Everything is uphill. It's exactly right what Frank Blake said. And there's some interesting aspects of physics of which I know nothing. Somehow I went all the way through grade school, high school, and college and never took a physics course. But I've been digging into finding a better metaphor, and there are some wonderful metaphors that are much better than water and gravity. And I think we need to outlaw this idea of cascading because the words that we choose are important. And when we think about communication cascading down, we're already setting incorrect expectations for ourselves. Now, someone argued with me, one of our clients said, well, what about goals? Can goals cascade down? I would prefer we don't use the verb cascade. However, I think goals from a high level, working their way down and making it really clear about no matter what role you have, the goals that you have are small contributions that lead to the whole all the way back up. I think that can work. So I'm not going to outlaw all cascading. However, I think anytime you start thinking about communication and what we do as leadership, finding the path of least resistance, that's not really how it works because leadership is really hard. And that's why so many people struggle with it. And that's why when we see great leadership, we really want to applaud it. So I will quit rambling about it here, but more to come on this topic that I think could offer a potential solution. And I think anytime people are putting out information from Home Depot with their acquisition of SRS, with their new contractor sales force, whether or not either of those in time will prove to be successful, when you get a company like Home Depot making moves, you have to be aware of what they're doing and the potential impact it could make to prepare for those things. So when I see anything from Home Depot, I'm going to read it. I'm going to listen in. And this was a wonderful episode to get a little context about the culture of Home Depot and a bunch of leadership insights from Frank Blake. All right, so there it is. Article, Jerry Seinfeld, podcast with Frank Blake of Home Depot. The one recommended book is The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity by Carlo Cipolla. Number of pages? 74. That's right, 74. And this is a small book. This book cannot be taller than 6 inches. It is a tiny little book that packs a punch. You can buy it for $11.99. Now, I stumbled across this little gem researching Nassim Nicholas Taleb. He's the author of The Black Swan, Fooled by Randomness, and Anti-Fragile, all of which I would also recommend to a friend. And I have a very simple rule. If Taleb writes it, I will read it. Now, I may not understand it all, but I will give it my best shot. So when I learned Taleb wrote the foreword for The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity, I considered this an extension of my rule, and boy, was I rewarded. This book by Carlo Cipolla gives the topic of stupidity some of the intellectual attention it deserves, given all the havoc it wreaks on humanity. I'll read to you the second paragraph that totally had me hooked, and then I just continued reading the book, and you can get this thing done in like 30 minutes. After Darwin, we know that we share our origin with the lower members of the animal kingdom, and worms as well as elephants have to bear their daily shares of trials, predicaments, and ordeals. Human beings, however, are privileged insofar as they have to bear an extra load, an extra dose of tribulations, originated daily by a group of people within the human race itself. This group is much more powerful than the mafia, or the military-industrial complex, or international communism. It is an unorganized, uncharted group which has no chief, no president, no bylaws, and yet manages to operate in perfect unison, as if guided by an invisible hand, in such a way that the activity of each member powerfully contributes to strengthen and amplify the effectiveness of the activity of all the other members. And of course, what they're talking about is stupid people. So after that, the author defines stupid, which I think is important. And he defines a stupid person as one who causes losses for others, another person or another group, without benefiting themselves, and may even suffer losses themselves.
1. Always and inevitably, everyone underestimates the number of stupid individuals in circulation. 2. The probability that a person is stupid is independent of any other characteristic of that person. Education, wealth, or status have nothing to do with it. 3. A stupid person is someone who causes losses to other people while himself deriving no gain. 4. Non-stupid people always underestimate the damaging power of stupid people and keep forgetting that to deal with stupid people always turns out to be a costly mistake. 5. A stupid person is the most dangerous type of person, even more dangerous than a bandit.
So this isn't just a book that is kind of a witty academic approach to making fun of dumb people. It's not. What it's saying is we really need to think about how people behave, how they do it consistently, and where and how they deliver gains and losses, think value, positive and negative value, to other people around them. So it is without the blatant sarcasm I was expecting. This book identifies 4 broad categories of humans based on the gain and or loss of value. So he starts with the opposite, which is intelligent. Intelligent people benefit through benefiting others. That makes sense. Then he identifies bandits. A bandit benefits themselves through injuring others. The third group is the helpless. And the helpless, they injure themselves while benefiting others. And then you come to the stupid people. Stupid people injure themselves through injuring others. So again, if you're in our newsletter, the Construction Leadership newsletter, which I would strongly recommend to a friend, we try to make it worth your while, deliver value every single month when we put it out. You can go do that by visiting our website, bradleyhartmanandco.com. At the bottom of every single page, you can subscribe. So in the Construction Leadership newsletter and also on our Instagram feed, which is Bradley Hartmann and Company, you will see the graphic that we put up there. But you can imagine a 2x2 grid. You have the individual that we're talking about, and then we're talking about others. And then in the 4 quadrants, you have, well, if you're an intelligent person who earns value for themselves while giving others value, and a bandit is the opposite. That person takes value by giving away injury or loss. And then obviously you got the helpless who they hurt themselves but help other people. It's not a great way to go through life, but better than a bandit. And then you have stupid people, which is you're hurting yourself while you're hurting other people. So the graphic makes it really easy, hard to kind of fully explain in the audio medium only. So check us out on Instagram, follow us in the Construction Leadership newsletter. And again, we're going to put notes and links to all of these things so you can consume them all. So that's it. The APB for the Q2 of 2024, articles on Jerry Seinfeld, the scholar of comedy from the New Yorker. The podcast I'd recommend is Invest Like the Best, featuring Mr. Frank Blake, the former CEO and chairman of Home Depot. And the book is this amazing little booklet that you can pound through, 74 pages, called The Basic Laws of Human Stupidity by Carlo Cipolla. All right, friends, that is all I've got for you. Our hope here is that of all the stuff that I've read or listened to or saw, that we've distilled down the best just for you, and you can get immediate value from it. If you did, please let me know. Also, if you've read some amazing stuff that you would encourage me or others to read in our community, we'd love to hear about it. So feel free to email me directly at info@bradleyhartmanandco.com. Again, that's info@bradleyhartmann, 2 N's, and co.com. We will read every single one of them when they come in. So that's all we've got. My friends, you are owed nothing. Deliver value first. Make it a great week.